The story of Daniel begins in a tumultuous time, marked by the fall of Jerusalem to the Babylonian Empire. King Nebuchadnezzar, in his quest to expand his empire, orders that the most promising young men from royal and noble families be taken to Babylon to serve him and the empire. Daniel, a young Hebrew, is one of those chosen, torn from his homeland and forced to live in a pagan and idolatrous culture. Alongside his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, Daniel undergoes a re-education process, being taught the wisdom and arts of the Babylonians, as well as being fed the finest delicacies of the palace. Life seemed promising, but this new world was full of challenges that would test his faith and his deepest convictions. From the beginning, Daniel faces a great choice: to follow Babylonian customs and live according to the religion and morals of the empire, or to remain faithful to the God of Israel and the teachings he learned in his home in Jerusalem. The decision he makes will be decisive not only for his life, but for the destiny of his generation. When King Nebuchadnezzar offered all the prisoners the opportunity to eat the food from his table, Daniel refused. For many, it would have been a chance to integrate, to enjoy the blessings of the empire. But Daniel knew that eating the king's food meant not only participating in pagan culture, but also disobeying divine law, which forbade the consumption of certain types of food. The young Hebrew then made the bold decision to ask for a simple diet of vegetables and water. He trusted that by remaining faithful, God would take care of him and protect him. Surprisingly, God honored Daniel's courage. After 10 days, Daniel and his friends were healthier and stronger than all the other young men who had eaten the king's delicacies. This choice was not merely a matter of food, but an affirmation of identity and faith. God used this act of obedience to demonstrate his faithfulness, and Daniel and his friends gained the favor of their supervisors. King Nebuchadnezzar, impressed by the intelligence and wisdom of Daniel and his friends, places them in prominent positions at court. Daniel becomes a valuable advisor, with extraordinary knowledge that makes him unique among the Babylonian wise men. However, what seemed to be a reward for his obedience to God would only be the beginning of a more challenging path. In this chapter, we see Daniel not only as a promising young man, but as a man of courage and integrity. His unwavering faith and courage in the face of a vast and oppressive empire are valuable lessons for us, reminding us that even in the most challenging situations, we can trust that God is on our side. Daniel's courage in remaining faithful to the Lord places him in a position of influence, but also prepares him to face the challenges that Babylon had in store for him. Chapter 1 is a landmark of faith and conviction. It presents Daniel not only as an example of courage, but also as a model of faithfulness to God, regardless of the circumstances. This simple yet profound act of refusing unclean food marks the beginning of a journey that will reveal itself not only as a story of survival, but as a story of spiritual triumph. Daniel's true strength lay not in his intelligence or his position, but in his unwavering trust in God, which prepared him for the great challenge of his life that was to come. The second chapter of the book of Daniel begins with a tense and mysterious scene. King Nebuchadnezzar, the absolute ruler of Babylon, begins to have disturbing dreams that leave him restless and troubled. These dreams are not only unusual, but seem to have a profound meaning, something the king cannot understand, something that powerfully afflicts him. Nebuchadnezzar summoned all the wise men of his court, magicians, astrologers, and enchanters, to interpret his dreams. However, he imposed an unusual and seemingly impossible condition. He not only demanded the interpretation of the dreams, but also asked his wise men to reveal the dream itself, without him having told them what he had seen. The reason behind this demand is clear. Nebuchadnezzar wanted to know if his wise men truly possessed divine wisdom, or if they were merely using tricks and deceptions to deceive the king. The wise men, terrified, assert that no one on earth would be capable of accomplishing such a task. And faced with this impossibility, the king becomes enraged. He orders that all the wise men of Babylon be executed, including Daniel and his friends, who had not yet been fully revealed as part of the king's council. It is in this moment of despair that Daniel enters the scene, demonstrating admirable courage and unwavering faith. When he learned of the execution order, he sought an audience with the king, and upon being summoned, asked for time to reveal the dream and its interpretation. Daniel knew he did not have the answer himself, but he fully trusted in God, who was able to reveal the mystery. Humbly, he withdrew to his home and asked his friends to pray, asking for God's mercy so that the mystery might be unveiled. During the night, amidst prayer and seeking answers, Daniel had a divine vision. In his vision, he saw Nebuchadnezzar's dream, and God revealed to him not only what the king had dreamed, but also its meaning. The vision was impressive: a huge statue with a head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron and feet of iron mixed with clay. Daniel understood through divine wisdom that the statue represented the successive empires that would rule the world, and each part of the statue corresponded to a phase of history. At dawn, Daniel went to the king and, with complete faith in God, revealed the dream, describing the statue in detail. Then, he also explained its meaning. The head of gold represented the Babylonian Empire itself, which would be the most magnificent of all. But after it would come another empire, represented by the chest and arms of silver, which symbolized the Medes and Persians. The belly of bronze represented the Greek Empire, and the legs of iron symbolized the Roman Empire, which would be immensely strong, but with feet of mixed iron and clay, indicating that its power would be fragmented. The vision was clear, but the most impressive part was the final scene. A stone, not cut by human hands, struck the statue and completely destroyed it, turning everything to dust. This stone, which destroyed all the empires of the earth, represented the eternal kingdom of God, which would be established indestructibly and would prevail forever. Daniel concluded his interpretation by saying, "The great God has revealed to the king what will happen in the future. His dream is true, and its interpretation is trustworthy." The king, astonished, recognized Daniel's divine wisdom and exalted him above all the other wise men of the empire. He had Daniel promoted and offered him great honors. Furthermore, the king also made a public declaration acknowledging Daniel's God as the true God, saying, "The God of Daniel is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and the revealer of mysteries." This chapter is not merely a narrative about a dream, but about God's sovereignty over all nations and empires. Daniel was not only an instrument of revelation, but also demonstrated that with faith, God can reveal the deepest mysteries and give wisdom where there seems to be no solution. Daniel, a young Hebrew exile, became an example of faithfulness and trust in God, and this story teaches us that even amidst the most challenging circumstances, God has control over the future and will guide us with his wisdom. At the end of this chapter, we can see how Daniel, in a moment of great danger, not only saves himself but also many others, pointing to the greatness of God, who can transform impossible situations into stories of victory and faith. Daniel's victory over the Babylonian wise men was not merely a matter of intelligence, but of faith and total dependence on God, who revealed the impossible.